Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Albert and welcome to my channel. And in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about this bear market we're going into and also a little bit about Tesla. But, I think the title of this presentation is, hey, anyone can make money in the bull market, because we've been in a crazy bull run for the last, let's say, 2 years. And actually, if you think about it, for the last like 10 years, right? It's been like ever since 2009, it's just been going up like crazy. And I think this is the first like big crash that people have experienced. At least for like my age bracket, like this is the first crash where we actually had money that was in the market, right? So I think it's really easy. Like the last 2 years have been really easy, right? Like anything that you do made money, right? A lot of finance YouTubers have gotten really famous and have been blowing up because like literally they can't be wrong. Everything they suggest just makes money. I also had this un un how's the word like un I had this confidence that was not deserved when I was selling these puts last year, where everything I just sold made money, right? Because you can't be wrong. And now that we're in a crazy bear market, I don't know, crazy crash at least, it's not so easy, right? Shit starts getting real and everyone's losing a ton of money. But one thing I'll say about that, hey, if you're losing a lot of money right now, it's okay. Everyone's losing money. Don't feel bad about it. But the one thing that I'd recommend is don't sell at the bottom, right? Don't sell. Don't panic and don't sell. If you can have conviction in whatever you're investing in, then just hold it through. It'll come back up. Don't worry about it. I know it's easier said than done. And one of the biggest things I regret is I rode that, I rode that crypto train like really early on, all the way up, and then all the way down, and then all the way back up again. But then on the way down, I panicked. I got greedy. I kind of split my investments, so I lost a lot of money. Because I didn't have the conviction that I do in Tesla, for example, right? So yeah, so if kind of retroactive reflection on going up and down, like I think a lot of that regret is like you lose the money when you sell, right? So right now, what's important during let's say a crash or a bear market is conviction, right? Conviction is really key, and obviously it's really easy to make money when things are going up, but I think right now is where it's important, where you actually make the money, because this is where you hold it, and you really have to have conviction in what you're doing, and don't panic. So Tesla, I think, is a generational company, and I believe it, and I don't think the market really understands it. So the earlier you understand it, and the earlier you are, the more profit there is to be made. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So I wanted to make this video just talking about why it's important, or like why I invest in Tesla and the conviction I have. And I wanted to do it in such a way where I'm not spending a lot of time like kind of analyzing every single number or any metric, and I want to talk more in just generalities. One, because I have to be able to understand it myself to be able to explain it, and then two, I just am kind of lazy as well. So just I'm gonna talk through this as best as I can. I just kind of put some ideas I had on paper, and I'm gonna walk through it. And this is my, let's say, my presentation to you on why I believe Tesla will be a very, very good investment. Maybe not right now, but definitely in the future. Okay, so obviously the first thing is, hey, Tesla's growing at above 50% a year on deliveries, right? And they've been saying that's what they've been guiding. That's what they've been achieving on. And it's very evident that they're going to be able to, they're setting themselves up to be able to continue doing this, right? They have really, really record, numbers on revenue, but also profit margins, right? So gross margin for a car company, 32%. That's going to be how much money they make off of selling this car. So if they all the stuff they buy to make this car, and then when they sell it, they make a 30% profit margin, right? And then you throw in other costs like operating costs, employees, factories, blah 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 blah, all this other stuff. It's actually still a 19% operating margin last quarter. Okay, that's really, really high. Keep in mind, industry average is probably like between 7 and 10%. Okay. So if they're growing and then also keep in mind, this operating margin is also increasing, right? These margins are also increasing. So if they're growing the deliveries at 50%, and they're confidently able to do that, and they're also growing their profit margins while they're doing this, then obviously their earnings are also growing at 50% plus, right? If their earnings are consistently growing at 50% plus every single year, then what will happen to the stock price, right? if the forward-looking PE ratio is roughly the same, and they grow earnings 50% every year, then obviously the stock price will also go up, right? Will it do it? Is it going to be step by step? Obviously not. But I mean, that's kind of the way I think about it. And the question is whether or not you believe they can grow 50% year over year. And I'll talk a little bit about that. In terms of just overall market, right? I think it's clear that EVs are going to be the future, right? I think eventually people, at some point in the future, I think it's hard to argue that people are going to stop selling electric, internal combustion engine vehicles. They're going to start selling, battery electric vehicles, right? Because the cost of maintaining an electric vehicle is much cheaper, right? You don't have to pay for gas, a lot less maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. The cost of buying an electric vehicle right now is more expensive because they're still working on the manufacturing. But at some point, that price is going to drop or it's going to be even, and then nobody will buy a nice vehicle anymore. All right. And the biggest thing that I hear about, people talking about Tesla is like, hey, competition is going to come and they're going to kill market share. Okay? They're going to come and kill market share. A couple of things on that, right? Number one, it doesn't really matter what Tesla's market share is if the market is growing, right? If Tesla sells, let's say there's only 100 cars, right? Tesla sells 100 cars, and that's the entire market. They have 100% of the market. And then someone else comes in and sells one car, then by definition, their market share is going down, right? Right? If Tesla sells 200 cars and then one person sells one car, their market share went down from 100% to 99.5%, whatever that is, right? So the number of the market share isn't actually that important, but also that's just like kind of a top number thing. So I don't want that to confuse you when you say, oh, Tesla's market share is going down. If the whole market is growing, it doesn't matter. One thing that's important to think about: Tesla sells every single car that they build months in advance. The race is how fast can they build these cars and get these cars delivered. Okay, that's all that's important. Okay, but let's talk about the competition. Okay, the competition. I think the issue is with competition is other manufacturers. The hard part is creating a car at a profit, building a car at a profit, and scaling, right? Building a car at a profit and scaling. And I don't think it's been proven yet. You haven't really seen many other car companies be able to do this at the level that Tesla's doing it, right? Not even close. Not even close. So, like I said, thinking about like the operating margin on a lot of these competition is like 7%, and they've been in the industry for years, right? You're asking them to completely redesign, build a whole new product, and then also keep that operation, and then double the operating profit. Like that's impossible. People think that Ford's been building ICE vehicles for 100 years, they're gonna be able to build an EV hell easily. No, that's not the case. It's actually bad for that because they have this other business that is gonna be shrinking, right? While they're trying to invest money into this new business that's not making money. So it's actually bad that they have this ICE vehicle. If they were to start from scratch and do it, they'd actually be at an advantage. On top of that, you take a look at, like, let's say Rivian, and let's talk about Rivian, for example. That got hella well funded, right? They delivered like 3,000 cars last year, and they spent like 60 something percent of Tesla's operating budget when Tesla produced like 200 something, like how much is it, like 300,000 cars, right? So I mean, like, it's very difficult to scale and to build that profit. Okay, so that's kind of what you want to look at when they start saying all those like things about, oh, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna do this, we're gonna be leading EVs in 2025. Look at their actual projections. Like, look at what GM's projecting to become at like 2025, 2026. And once again, I don't look at any numbers, but I think it's around like we're gonna be 2 million cars by 2026, and that's like a goal. We're gonna be leading EVs. Tesla will already be there by like 2023, 2024, right? So they're not actually gonna be able to do these things that they're saying, and whatever they're saying is already lower than what Tesla will probably be at. So that's what has happened with the competition. And keep in mind, they have these businesses with a lot of overhead and debt, right? And that profit is going to be shrinking. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so another reason on high level, Tesla is, I think a very easy investment is because they operate. Okay, so here's the argument I hear all the time, right? Hey, why is Tesla producing only X% of the market, but their value is all entire car companies combined, right? And here's why, right? Because Tesla is other than the profit and the debt and all that stuff, they are a different type of company, right? They are different in the sense that a car manufacturer basically will get all these supplies. Like, hey, you build this, you build the chairs, you build these parts, you build this, and I'll build the engine, I'll put it together, right? Also, you have these dealerships where, you know, the dealerships will do they'll do the fix the car and whatever, and they'll take some profit. But Tesla sells their car directly to the consumer, and they also do their own service as well. So they have a lot of data on like, hey, what cars need to like what's the issues with cars, and they can just go ahead and like fix that, right? They have the whole, they understand everything about it. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so Tesla's product isn't really I mean, it's obviously the cars, but it's really the machine that makes a machine. So their manufacturing is really where Tesla is a different beast. Um, and if I were to kind of go down this list, they have their own supercharger network, right? That's very difficult to build. So if it's like all these other companies are trying to build their own, and is they have to invest heavily in that. And then like I think the most important here is the vertical integration, right? So they design their own battery packs, they design their own drivetrain, they design their own seats, they have their own glass, they make their own glass. So it's like they're not dependent on anyone else, right? They actually have the expertise. They have the expertise in house, and this will actually greatly, especially now with supply chain issues, they have a lot more control over their own destiny because of supply chain, right? You take a look at how many cars like GM, how many EVs GM made like last quarter. It's like in the hundreds, right? So why is that? Oh, blame supply chain. And I mean I think it's other stuff too, but my point is like they are set up in a way where they have a lot more control over their own destiny. Also, they have this GigaPress, which once again is like they can actually basically print a car. Like they like cast this like some sort of some alloy they made up, and just like it just casts and then it creates an entire car. So there's no welding, there's a lot less parts. And then I mean even more importantly, they write their own software. So the operating system that that operates everything, they don't outsource that. Like all these other companies, they outsource that, right? They can write their own software. They design their own chips. They manufacture their own batteries and design their own batteries. They have their own AI team, right? When you get into like full self driving, they have like the best AI team. So they build everything in house. So they're like a super mobile like Elon Musk says that they're like 8 companies in one, right? So they're like this really like flexible company, right? So it's like, hey, I can't get these chips now. Okay, let me rewrite the software so these chips run more efficiently. So they can do shit like that. Whereas all these other car manufacturers are like twiddling their thumbs. Okay, so just on the car selling alone, if you do the math, if they're growing at 50% year over year till 2030, then they can probably get to like a multi-trillion-dollar valuation just off that, right? So, but then on top of that, you have these like home run possibilities, right? So, like let's talk about full self-driving, right? Like that there's like a chance that would just like multiply their earning potential by a huge factor, right? So like let's say for example that they figure out full self-driving, right? Then they can sell a car, and instead of selling a car, they can just have a car just taxi, right? Taxi on its own. And I think they were saying they can make like 25 cents a mile or something like that. I forgot what the cost 25 cents a mile. So just imagine how much, and if you take a look at other people's estimates, like how much money that is. But my point is like I think they're in a position to win this because once again they have their own in-house world-class AI team. But what's most important is that they have the data, right? They have the data. They have like 100,000 people, real people on their beta that's testing it, that's sending information back to their, their neural network or wherever I don't know how it works, their like AI computer, and they're just processing all this information. So kind of like how Google or kind of like how any other company works with AI, like the more data you have, the more likely you're gonna win, right? You're gonna train your neural network better. They have the most data. They have the most miles driven of data. So to me, they're obviously going to win. And they're also solving a much larger problem. All these other companies, like let's say GM's Cruise, for example, they're like this car can drive itself, but only in this city where we painfully mapped out every single street, every single scenario. It's like in this sandbox, and your car can just run around, right? That works really well in this little area. What Tesla's solving is like, hey, I can have a camera, and these are my eyes, and I'm building a brain, and this car can drive itself anywhere because it can kind of make decisions based on all these factors. So it's a much more difficult problem to solve, right? And then obviously energy is another huge opportunity for them. And then they also have insurance, which I don't think it's as huge, but thinking about the insurance, they have all this data. They're now selling insurance, right? And they can price insurance much lower because they know how well you drive. The better you drive, the cheaper your insurance is live, right? So you drive well, you have a safety score, you drive better, your insurance gets cheaper. So there's just a huge opportunity for them to like make money and like be more vertical in their business. Okay, so downsides. I think I've been reading a lot of articles about Tesla and Twitter and all this shit, and like, oh, this is why this person says this. I've read this article from the Wall Street Journal, and it's basically just quoting people on why Tesla's gonna go to shit. Whatever. It's. I think you have to you kind of have to like think for yourself on these things, and I think these are the potential downsides for Tesla. Obviously, the biggest one is China COVID shutdown. Right, they shut down for like a whole month, and they're not making cars, and that's gonna heavily impact their heavily impact their production numbers, which will impact their revenue, impact their profit margins. But that's a short-term thing, right? That's gonna be done this quarter. But yeah, I could see like quarter 2 being really poor for Tesla. And then supply chain, obviously, if they don't get the parts, then they can't make it. But like I said before, they're doing a lot of things to overcome the supply chain. They're even thinking about like getting into like sourcing raw materials, mining and stuff like that. So they've been thinking about this problem for a long time, whereas all these other car companies are just like, hey, like we're limited by supply chain, whatever. And then so those are both. I think those are both short-term issues. And then I think Elon being Elon definitely will affect the short-term stock price, especially now with like obviously he's not really like great at being professional about a lot of stuff. So he just like tweets whatever, and he's getting a lot of hate from like liberal media now because whatever. I've read the most ridiculous things, but yeah, he's like, oh, Tesla's super racist, or they're not like good for their environment, or just all dumb stuff. So obviously he could be better, but that's just how he is, and that's kind of like the one of the downsides you get with investing in Tesla. But also it creates opportunity because people don't see the long-term future. So I think all these downsides are short-term. But yeah, so that's my rant on why I think Tesla is a good company. So if you're investing in Tesla, you're worried about it, I would recommend to hold. I'm going to hold. Yeah. Let me know if you have any other ideas on why, like, downsides. Obviously, I try not to be blinded by, obviously, I try not to be blinded by, like, hey, just 100% optimism, which I have an issue with that a lot. But hey, if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments. But thanks for listening to my TED Talk. All right, see ya. And also, please like and subscribe. Thanks.